Hi and welcome back to my channel. It is January reading wrap-up time. Woohoo! So get yourselves comfy. It is freezing. It is raining. It's thoroughly unpleasant, but it is perfect for talking about books. And that is what we're here for. Let's get into it. So get yourself a drink. I'm going to do something that I've always wanted to do. Anyway, I've done my nails today. If you can't tell, I'm very excited about them. And then let's see if we can get a really satisfying ring pull. Right, well, doesn't look like that on other people's channels. Anyway, we've got a lot to talk about. So, I read 19 books in January, and I made a conscious effort of, if I started a series, to finish it. That worked with some of them, didn't work with others, but I tried. And that is the best that we can ask for, guys. So for the first read of 2026, I spun a little wheel, and I couldn't have written it, to be honest. The series that I was probably most intimidated by, because there was so much pressure riding on it, was the Edge of Darkness trilogy by Lee Rivers, which my very good friend Emma, I say asked, it was more demanded that I read, and it came up as the first read of 2026. So for those that don't know, the Edge of Darkness trilogy is a dark romance trilogy that follows Cade and Stacey. It is best friend's brother. It is a little bit of forbidden romance. If you are at all tempted to go read them, please go look at the triggers first, because Lee Rivers does not mess around. When she says it's a dark romance, it very much is a dark romance. This is not dark romance just because somebody has a gun and is a bit of a bad boy. Like, this is a dark romance because realistically, no one in this series should be together. They all need to go for a lot of therapy and a lot of soul searching, and they all need some time on their own before they get into committed relationships. However, this isn't the real world. This is our lovely fantasy book world, and in this world, Cade and Stacey are just... there's very few loves like theirs. It's beautiful. I went into this series with really high expectations. I knew it was Emma's all-time god tier series. I've watched reading vlogs of people reading this and they're hysterical, and I went into this wanting to have my heart ripped out. That didn't happen. However, so this is not a god tier series for me. However, it is a 5-star series, and I rated them. I think the first one was 4.5. Book 2 was 5. I loved book 2. And book 3, I think, was 4. But the whole collective vibe of these books, I would say, makes it a 5-star series. My main criticism of it is that book 3 is 508 pages, and I will be honest, it could probably have ended at about page 350. I'm not bored, that is not the right word at all, but I was over it. They'd had a conclusion, and I was happy with that conclusion, and I wish it had ended there. However, I do completely see why people give so much of themselves to these books. I completely understand why this is god tier for so many people, purely because of Lee Rivers' writing, and I really, really like Lee Rivers' writing. The only thing I'd read of hers before these was Satanic Shadows, which is a very different vibe. It is a lot of smart. It's like a paranormal school setting, and the majority of the book club that I read that with didn't like it, and I am renowned in that book club for not liking the books that we choose. And I loved Satanic Shadows. It was a spicy, smutty, good time. But the thing that kind of dragged me into loving it was Lee Rivers' writing. I think she's got a really good way with words. I think she has a very good way of instilling emotions into what she says, and I don't necessarily always mean heartfelt, touching emotions, but emotions you would actually feel in that moment. And I think she's very good at getting that across in her writing, whether that's comedic, whether it is, what the hell are you doing? Like, whether it's confusion, being flabbergasted, anything. I think she's really good at portraying it. And there's a lot of dark romances that I do not gel with. This series is what I want in a dark romance. Like, I want tortured souls who in the real world you would be running 1,000 miles a minute away from, but in lovely Bookland. Right, let's just fix you. Hi. I think I've now sorted it. I think you might stay in one place, possibly, but we'll find out. Anyway, so after the Edge of Darkness trilogy, I went into the Compelling Fates saga by Sophia St. Germain. I struggled with this series, I really did. And I struggled because I know it's a me problem. It's not a book problem. It is definitely a me problem. So the Compelling Fate saga follows Alessia, who is a fae sworn to her king through a blood oath. She is also capable of looking into anyone's eyes and getting them to do what she wants, basically. So the king is big fan, has a lot of uses for her, and Alessia lives within, I say the human realm, but it's not a realm, it is more the human lands within this world. And the local elections are coming up for there to be a ruler of this land, and the king tells Alessia that she has to go and enter, she has to win, and she has to find out XYZ bits of information for him because he thinks there are plans afoot. I read the first two of these, so I read A Tongue So Sweet and Deadly and A Promise So Bold and Broken. And I struggled. So these books are a perfect romantasy. I cannot fault them. I didn't enjoy them because I'm not enjoying romantasy at the minute, and I was really hoping that this series was going to turn it around, and it didn't. I enjoyed this series as much as I was capable of enjoying it at this time, but I also know that if I'd have read this 12 months ago, I would have eaten this up. I would have read all 4 books. I would have been obsessed. I just, weirdly, even though I like the story, don't really like Alessia. She kind of got on my nerves. There is a love triangle, and the MMC, or one of the MMCs, was a wet blanket. I didn't like him. And the other MMC deserves the entire world and needs to just swan off into the sunset and go find himself persons who actually deserve him, because he deserves so much better than he gets in this book so far. That's my opinion. I part read and part did the audio, and I had to stop after book 2 because the audio for book 3 is out, I think, the end of this month or the end of next, but the audio for book 4 isn't out till June. And as much as I do want to finish this series, it's absolutely not a DNF series at all, I do want to be able to do it on audio because it made it slightly more enjoyable for myself. So I have put this series on ice until I think it's June when book 4 comes out, and then I can do books 3 and 4 there. But I think I rate them both about 3 stars. They are, like I said, they are a perfect romantasy. They tick every romantasy box. The problem is that I'm just not enjoying romantasy at the minute. So for the time being, it's like a 3-star series, but I am going to finish it. I just need the audios to come out. We then got a new content series, guys. Oh, I'm so excited. Anyone that remotely knows me will not be in any way surprised that this series has made it to God tier, but it's The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon. Oh, just bury me with these books. I love them so much. I am right, okay, where do I start? Well, with the Bone Season. So the Bone Season is an incomplete series by Samantha Shannon. There are currently 5 books out, 2 novellas, and there are 2 more books due to be released to complete the series over the next sort of year or two. Anyone that knows me, anyone that has listened to me speak for more than 5 minutes, will know that my favourite read of last year was The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. I read that book and I was instantly transported back to being like 7 years old, reading the Chronicles of Narnia and just thinking, oh my god, this is what reading can do. Reading can open up this whole other world to me. And I need it. I need everything. I need to ingest everything about it. That is how the Roots of Chaos series made me feel. I've then had the Bone Season series on my TBR for ages, and I've been equal parts excited and terrified to read it because it's so different to the Roots of Chaos series. And there was always that risk that I was going to read it and think, oh, absolutely not. No, I enjoy her epic fantasy writing, but I don't enjoy like anything else about it. I'm so happy to tell you all that's not what happened. So there is a novella before Bone Season called The Pale Dreamer. So I read that one first, but you do not have to read the novellas to carry on with the series. You could go straight into Bone Season. You could go straight into Bone Season without having read The Pale Dreamer. But for a full experience, I like a novella. I'm a novella person. I get that there are some people that are like, well, I'm not reading the novellas, but I like the little nuances and intricacies that they bring into the story. So I will start just from book 1, but with the Bone Season, you have got Paige. She is a 19-year-old clairvoyant living within the Siam Republic, specifically in London. However, she is Irish born, which plays a huge part throughout this series. She is captured by the Siam Republic. Within this world, clairvoyant, so anyone that kind of see, sense, speak to, interact with ghosts or the spirit realm, are classed as illegals. She's the second in command within an underground gang. One day, Paige is arrested for murder and is thrown deep into the Siam Republic. And the books basically tell her journey of overthrowing the Siam Republic. So you've got Pale Dreamer novella, Bone Season, Mime Order, Song Rising. You then have the second novella, which is The Dawn Chorus, The Mask Falling, and Dark Mirror. I can't explain my love for these books. I was so invested. Things that happen in these books I did not see coming a mile off. Stuff that like 50 pages before it happened I saw coming, but the build up to it and the anticipation still had me screaming at the pages. I cried at these books. Samantha Shannon's writing is just incredible. She is without a doubt my favourite author, and I'm now devastated that I have read everything that she's written. And you know, I get that kind of mass factory publishing is not where it's at, but if she could like instantly release about 20 more books, I'd be happy. It is a dystopian fantasy. There is a very small romantic subplot, but if you read books for the romance, this will not scratch that itch for you. But just the underlying yearning between 2 of the characters just bowled me over. I was obsessed. The world building is so clever in the fact that it mixes the real world with this fantasy element so well. So within the series, she lives in London. She comes up to Manchester, which I loved because you never get Northern rep in these books. It is always London. But she came up to Manchester, so I was loving like the place names and the places that she talks about. I was like, oh yeah, I know that. Because even though it is set in the future, these places still existed. She went up to, there's some time spent in Scotland, she goes over onto the continent, so she spends some time in France. She is in Italy, in Prague, I think. It's really interesting and fun. Fun seems the complete wrong word to use for this series, but it is really fun just seeing all this stuff happen in a place that you can Google image. and to actually see where this happened and what was going on in this situation. It's so well done. And like I said, you don't have to read the novellas, but the Pale Dreamer sets up Paige's character so well. It explains a lot of who she is and why she is the way that she is. It also just introduces you to a lot of the sort of side characters and helps you realize why her relationships with them are the way that they are when you're then reading the other books. So it's all for backstory, that one, but I would highly recommend it. The third one, the second novella comes after book 3. So it comes after The Song Rising. And there is a character in these books called Arcturus, and the second novella, the only way I can describe it is Arcturus becomes a housewife. And that is a situation that I didn't know I needed in my life until I was reading it. He learns to cook, he wears an apron. It very much gave me vibes of what is this computer system thing in Marvel, who then ends up falling in love with the Scarlet Witch, Paul thingy in real life. I know exactly what I'm talking about, but it gives me that vibes. Series, God tier. I think one of them may have been 4.5, but I think the majority of this series all got 5 stars. Like, just give me 5,000 more of them, please. Love them all. We then had my book club's book of the month, which was Of Blazing Wings, I think. Yeah, Of Blazing Wings by Eliza Reign. I did not enjoy this book. This one is a Viking Fae romantasy, which had a lot of potential. I like the world. I like Viking mythology. I like pagan mythology. I was very excited to see how all this came into play. I like the setting of it. It's set in Yggdrasil, so it's a little bit different than it, being Valhalla, or it. There was differences to this book that could have set it up so well. It was written in the most juvenile manner, and I couldn't get my head around it. There is swearing throughout the book. It's not like I'm doing this as a trigger warning. There is swearing throughout the book, and then there is one really, really weird, like, spicy scene. If you'd have taken those 2 elements out of this book and told me that the characters were 14, I would have absolutely believed you. Like, take those elements out of this book, market this book as like a middle grade book, I would have eaten this book up as a teenager, like as a pre-teen teenager. I would have loved it. Absolutely loved it. But at 38 years old, no. It was just so... I wrote a long list of points, and I'm not... Do you know what I mean? It feels bad to talk about a book for so long if I didn't like it. But ultimately, this was not for me. The rest of the book club, a lot of them really, really enjoyed it. But I didn't like the writing. I didn't like the things that were happening in it. It felt so predictable, and not just in the way that romancy feels predictable. And to me, there are very glaring plot holes. Like, there are glaringly obvious plot holes within it. The main one being, I do not feel as a spoiler, but if you definitely don't want any spoilers in the teensiest, tiniest way possible, maybe just skip ahead a few minutes. But she has the power to... She's basically got a photographic memory. And she's been kept hidden by her parents throughout her whole life because this power is so valuable. However, riddle me this. If it's a photographic memory, that's not visible from the minute you're born. So why did your parents separate you from your twin? Like, what? Why? Makes no sense. Just little things like that just annoy me, because I just feel like it's lazy writing where they have made a narrative fit where they want the book to go, rather than actually getting the book to take the right path, if that makes any sense whatsoever. It probably doesn't. But it just very much felt like one of those books where the author had gone, right, these are my characters, this is what I want to happen, so I'm just going to get them there. And that journey just wasn't really full enough for me. It was a no, and that series is going in the not continuing pile. We then had this one's a mouthful. I crash landed on an alien planet and now I'm in a rom-com, I think is what it's called, by Kimberly Lemming. I love this book. I really do. This is my travelling book club pick. So I read it, annotated it, and passed it on to the next girl in the group. I really like Kimberly Lemming's writing. It is so unserious. She is having a great time writing it, and you are having a great time reading it. Like, I have no issue with spies or smutting books. So occasionally that is exactly what I want. But it has to be done the right way. Don't try and make something that it isn't. And Kimberly Lemming's writing absolutely got the memo, and her writing is what it is, and it is just so funny. It is such a good time. Her books are more smut than plot, but they're so funny. Like, honestly, go read them. This is the start of a new series, and I'm absolutely continuing with it. It isn't a series that you get emotionally invested in any way, shape, or form, but it is a good time series. It is trash TV in book form, and sometimes that is exactly what you need. Like, the representation that she has in her books in terms of her FMCs are always women of colour, and they're always sort of curvy and, you know, intelligent. Her characters are really likable. The whole thing is a damn good time. Like, you'd laugh out loud reading her books. Her books manage to put every kind of stereotypical romancy trope that you know and love or know and hate into a book, and just make it read like something you haven't read before. It's good times all around. The spy starts on page 69, which, I'm sorry, that's just genius. That was hilarious. I'm maybe 38, but I've got the mentality of a child. That was funny to me. Like, it's also purposeful. But yeah, go read it. Honestly, good times were had. Oh, I think my light's just gone out. Right, well, that's my quality gone. That'll probably be the key for me to stop talking soon. We also then read Margaret Atwood's The Testaments, which is the second book in the Handmaid's Tale series. It follows on post Handmaid's Tale. There are potential connections between Handmaid's Tale and this, but they are two separate stories, obviously all set within the same world. And the writing follows the same style as Handmaid's Tale, if you have read it, where it's supposed to almost be witness statements and court transcripts. I love it. I read loads of reviews on this after I'd finished it, of people being like, oh, I don't understand why there was a second one. There didn't need to be a second one. And to me, the people that had that opinion didn't get the book. Like, and I don't mean that in a, well, I understood it more than you did. But it isn't a book where there is a start, a middle, and an end. The end is variable, I guess, is the best way to say it, because they're supposed to be historical look backs on Gilead and how women were. And one of the things I will say, there was this, and there was Bone Season, and there were a few more books that I'll come to in a minute, that with the state of the world at the minute and how everything is, really, really hit deep, and really just had you thinking, do you know what? I sit here and I take so much enjoyment from reading about this stuff happening in books, but the sort of cruel truth at the minute is so much of this is happening in our world. And that was an eye-opening thought to have, really, at the start of the year. But ultimately, if you haven't read Handmaid's Tale, I do think it should be compulsory reading. I think it's got a really, really important story to it. Likewise, I think The Testaments has got a really vital message that goes through it. And the one thing that was the takeaway, I think, from The Testaments is that it could be anyone. Anyone is one step away from being within a marginalised people. You can sit there and you can be confident in, well, I'm XYZ, so therefore it doesn't affect me. All it takes is one person's different opinion to be in power. All it takes is one person suddenly having a vendetta because they're an immature man-child who has power to the world, who has access to the world's nuclear bombs, you know, and next thing you know, you're up. And I think the Testament show that really, really well, to be honest. So that was a 5-star. Go read it, please. Just loved it. I have nearly come to the end of this now. I then read Beth is Dead by Katie Burnett, and I loved this book. It was so unlike anything I would usually read. It's like a YA thriller, but the reason that I pre-ordered this a year ago, and I've been so excited for it ever since, is it's a Little Women retelling, and Little Women is my all-time favourite read. I still reread it every year. I still cry at it every time I read it. I love Little Women. And this book so it's a retelling of it, and basically it starts off, it's New Year's Eve. Amy and Beth have been at Sally's party, which again ties into Little Women, and basically Beth turns up dead. It then tells the story of getting to the bottom of Beth's murder. I loved it. I had such a good time reading this book, mainly because I loved all the little callbacks to Little Women. It was so well done, and there were some things brought into it I never would have thought about. But as soon as I read them, I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. I think the characters were really well represented. What I found really interesting is that I hated Jo in this book. Hated her, could not stand her. Jo in Little Women is one of my favourite characters. Like, in Little Women, I'd say it's Jo. Jo is my favourite character in Little Women, closely followed by Amy once she's stopped being a little bitch. But in Beth is Dead, it was Amy from the start. I loved Amy. Like the way her character is written is so good. The way Jo is written is so good. But oh my god, was she annoying in this book. But then when I looked at it kind of impartially, if that's the right word, like there is very little difference between Jo in this book and Jo in Little Women. But I think my brain forgives it more in Little Women because it's like a period piece, whereas in this one, obviously, it's modern day. Could not stand Jo. And every action Jo took in this book, Jo 100% would have taken in Little Women. I can't explain how much I hated her in this book. I really did. But honestly, all the little callbacks, all the little side characters that kind of come into it. If you've read Little Women, you'll know that Amy loves art. Amy has a friend called Kitty, who she, looks up to because Amy likes the shinier side of life. Kitty has the money to provide this. The way that Kitty's character came into this book, I loved it. I was giggling, kicking my feet, which probably isn't the best thing to do during a murder thriller. But honestly, it was such a fun time. And I think I've then made people read this since who haven't read Little Women, and they have also really enjoyed it. But for me, the main enjoyment was 100% the crossovers between the original and this book. I just think it was such... I need to stop waving this around. I'm going to make you all dizzy, and I'm sorry. But I do think it was just such a good retelling. I just think it was done so, so well. Yeah. So we are now on to the final 3 books. I'm guessing you'll all be glad to hear that by now. I also read Nova, which is the first book in the Phoenix Prophecy series by Cara Clare. I'd read this a couple of years ago and really enjoyed it. Or I'd read most of it. And then I thought, right, well, I'll finish it off now. And it was a singing indictment, is that the right phrase? Of how much my choice of books or my taste in books has changed over the last few years. Because I would not recommend it. And I will not be continuing with the series. Again, it was a 9% smut, 10% plot, but it tried to make out like the plot was a lot more of it. than it actually was. It's a why choose shifter romance. So there's paranormal aspects. So there's vampires, there's shifters, there's witches, and it basically follows this girl whose powers seem to have awakened, and she has some sort of control over fire, and she is dragged into this conflict between the supernatural and the human worlds because there are extremists on both sides who do not want the other ones to exist. I did enjoy the fact that the shifters weren't what you would usually get. One of them is a polar bear. That's new. Um, and I mean, I enjoy that it was a why choose. I like myself a why choose, and I especially love a why choose when my boyfriends are boyfriends. That always spells out a good time. But again, the FMC was annoying. Didn't like her, and it was uh, just not the best written in my opinion. It was a little bit too much like we have met and now we must immediately defend this woman with our lives. There was no build up. I think the way I would enjoy this book more would be, so you've got the boyfriends who are already boyfriends, and then the the FMC slowly gets introduced to them or potentially start something with somebody else first, so that you've got a bit of progression and not yearning because it's not the right book for a yearn, but so you can actually feel like the connection that's growing is real. And if for that smutty spice kick, you've already got an established relationship between the two boyfriends. I think that would have got me a lot more invested. But and then oh, I read Red Rising by Pierce Brown. And this series has changed my brain chemistry. A 6-star series. So I read Red Rising and Golden Sun at the end of January, and then I finished off Morning Star this month. But so good. I can't. Between this and the Bone season, I think I've been spoiled for the rest of the year. Like I genuinely don't see how I'm going to find anything that tops them. Just, it was incredible. So Red Rising is set in this dystopian, futuristic world where humans have evolved into various colours. So this colour scale goes from reds down at the bottom to golds at the very top. Gold's the elite, reds are doing the grunt work, they are mining, and there's various different colours doing different roles within this world. So pinks tend to be essentially bred purely for pleasure, essentially. Violets are in the arts. Blues are like technologically minded. Just all various kind of pigeonholes that these colours are put into. Um, Darrow is essentially conscripted into this rebellion and is placed undercover at a gold training school, for lack of other words. I kept seeing kind of comparisons between this and the Hunger Games before I picked it up. And I do get that. I get it because they go into this training school and then there are sort of challenges, and they're essentially challenges to the death for a lot of part of it. And it is all televised and the elites are watching it and getting their rocks off watching it. So that is very much Hunger Games vibes, and I get that. However, to me, I felt it was a lot more like Lord of the Flies, which was one of my favourite books when I was younger. And it very much showed this mentality of you chuck a load of people into a certain environment, kind of what comes out of it, nature over nurture. There are characters who are a certain way purely because of how they've been brought up, and then they have redemptions. Likewise, there are characters that have had the best lives and they turn out to be the worst people. So it is very much an example of the best and worst kinds of of humanity within this book. I will say Severo Till I Die. I would lay my life down for that little howler. I love him. He has played with my emotions so much throughout these books. I've never been so stressed as reading parts of them, purely because of him. Darrow is just, oh, he's lovely. I would really recommend the audios for these books, either the standard audio or the graphic. Now, don't get me wrong, the books, I love them. The narrator for the audio, it's the same narrator playing Darrow. It's the same narrator that does the standard edition as plays Darrow in the graphic audio. And he has got this beautiful Irish voice. And I can't explain it, but it then fits Darrow so well. And it brings a new level of humanity to these characters that you are listening to. But that being said, the book on its own is just something. Pierce Brown's writing is just incredible. The way he manages to talk about emotions that his characters are feeling are just next level. But at the same time, at the heart of it, Pierce Brown is a millennial girly, and I will hear nothing else about it. Like, some of the references that he's got into these books, like the most serious of situations, and then someone will say something, and I was like howling with laughter. In one of the books, this man has managed to put in the line, "Bye, Felicia." Like, genius. Absolute genius. And I loved it. All three of them, well, so like I said, I read Morningstar in February, but for the sake of rounding this off, Red Rising is a 6-star god tier series, and every single book in that series got rated a 5-star, which is so unusual for me. Honestly, they were just the best thing ever. And that is it. My light is gone. I think my phone battery's about to go. I'm surrounded by books. But that was my January reading wrap up. Thank you for sticking around. You have stuck around listening to my rambling long enough to get to this point. Then leave me an emoji of something red. Anything red in the comments. Let me know if you've read any of these books and your thoughts about them. Thank you. I'll see you next time.